What's going on, Grand Rapids? I'm Whitney. I'm from Schuler Books, and I do the author tours. This fall, Schuler Books is celebrating our 35th anniversary as your local independent bookstore. So, thank you. So, this was part of our awesome fall lineup. This is like the jewel in my little crown this fall. So, thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it. First off, I'd like to welcome our moderator, Rebecca Kruth. After earning degrees in English and American Studies from Michigan State University, Go Green, Rebecca began her radio career as a newsroom intern at WKAR in East Lansing. Following additional news internships in Chicago and Aspen, she joined Michigan Radio in 2014, where she is reporter and host of Weekend Edition. We're super delighted that she could join us tonight. And then, of course, DENIS Leary needs no introduction, but I'm gonna do it anyways because I have been a fangirl for so long and this is my chance, right? Building off a legendary career as a stand-up comic, DENIS has acted in over 40 movies and was the star and creator of the TV series Rescue Me and, right, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. When his iconic stand-up special No Cure for Cancer was released in 1993, if you asked me and my friends why we did pretty much anything, the answer was inevitably, because I'm an asshole, yo, yo, yo. Though my initial fandom came from those caustic, utterly hilarious rants, my love for DENIS Leary grew once I realized he had a giant heart underneath that sassy exterior. I wanted to call him sassy, I don't know why. In 2000, he founded the Leary Firefighters Foundation in response to a tragic fire in Massachusetts that claimed the lives of his cousin, a childhood friend, and 4 other firefighters. Still ongoing, the Leary Firefighters Foundation provides funding and resources to fire departments to obtain the best available equipment, technology, and training. In the wake of the events of September 11th, the foundation established the Fund for New York's Bravest to raise money for the families of the 343 firefighters who perished in the line of duty. And in 2014, the foundation presented more than $260,000 in new equipment to the Detroit Fire Department, with proceeds from the award-winning Detroit firefighter documentary Burn, which DENIS executive produced. Right? He is also the author of 5 books, which is what brings us here today. In 2008, Dr. DENIS Leary released his best-selling book, Why We Suck, a feel-good guide to staying fat, loud, lazy, and stupid. Now he has returned with Why We Don't Suck and how all of us need to stop being such partisan little bitches. Because he knew it was time for someone to stand up and make us all smell the coffee. Please join me in giving a huge welcome to Dr. DENIS Leary!
Thanks, guys. This is Rebecca.
Thanks so much for coming out tonight. We're so happy that you're here. So Dennis,
Yes.
what are we going to talk about? I mean, you haven't really been up to much of anything
No,
lately.
I haven't been.
No, just kind of hanging out.
We could talk about the Red Wings.
We could. Dennis gave me a lot of grief backstage for having never been to a hockey game. So I'm sorry. I know. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Bobby Orr. Bobby Orr. Bobby Orr. In my book, the greatest hockey player of all time. Because, and I can say this, because I know Wayne Gretzky as well, and he says it quite often. But I just think in terms of pure, sorry, we were going off on a hockey
It's
thing.
all right.
We're supposed to talk about the book.
Knock yourself out.
But, in terms of pure fucking talent, his career only lasted really 7 or 8 years. Just, amazing fucking gifted guy. But whatever. Sorry, we got the hockey out of the way.
We got the hockey out of the way, right away. So let's talk about the book. Okay, so your last book, you told us why we do suck.
Yes.
Apparently you've had a change of heart. Is that what I'm to believe from this? Are we doing better? What's going on here, Dennis?
How many people in the audience have read the book yet? Good. It's perfect. So I didn't expect any speed reading. What this book is, and you've read it, so you know it. I'm still talking about a lot of the stuff that sucks about us,
Yes.
but I'm trying to point out the reason that I wrote the book was during the course of that last election, and in the little bit of time since, I have 2 adult children, 25 and 27. This past presidential election was really the first sort of emotional investment they had, especially for my daughter, who's 25. And I think we all, by the way, you probably already know this because you may have seen the advertising. If you are a Trump supporter and don't have a sense of humor, or a Hillary supporter and you don't have a sense of humor, don't read the fucking book, because your head is going to explode.
Don't do it.
I didn't vote for Trump. I voted for Hillary almost by protest because I thought she was a horrible fucking candidate, a very flawed candidate, as was he. But the whole process just made me feel like this is fucking everybody. All my Democratic friends came out of it with their senses of humor having dissipated, and since then they've just been rage tweeting against the Republicans, and my Republican friends have done the same thing. And I just was like, I'm going to write something that basically reminds us of how fucking funny this bullshit was. But at the same time, I wanted, I think, one of my Republican buddies that I play hockey with summed it up. He was like, man, he said, I feel like I came really fucking close, and this guy hates Hillary, for voting for Hillary Clinton because the stuff that he's pro-gun and pro-gun control, which is what I am, just on that one issue. So, and since then, the racism and the sexism and these things that have popped up, I was already writing about them in the book as these things were happening. So I just wanted to, really, I wrote it for my kids to go like, okay, listen, this shit is still funny, and I just want to put the moral compass, at least my moral compass, which comes from my mother and my father, back on it, because so much of it to me was just fucking, it was hilarious how fucking insane that election was, you know.
Were you writing this as the election was going on, or when did you
this
start
is what
writing
happened
it?
to me. I do 2 stand-up concerts every year. One is, they're always in November. One is for the Cam Neely Cancer Foundation. Cam Neely's a hockey Hall of Famer, a good friend of mine. Seabass from the Dumb and Dumber movie, the first one. And Cam ended up playing, he's from Canada, but he ended up playing in Boston long before I was famous. And we do a thing called Comics Come Home. This is our 23rd year at the Boston Garden, TD Garden. And I don't do, the only old piece of material I do every year is the asshole song, because the audience demands it. So I do the asshole song at the end, but I always open up with at least 30 minutes of brand new material. And that's, for me as a comedian, your mind is always clicking on that. So, and then I do another show about a week after or a week before for the Michael J. Fox Parkinson's Foundation. So 4 days after the election, I had that sold-out show in Boston Garden. It's 15,000 people. And I went up on stage, and I just fucking vented. And it was anti-Trump jokes and anti-Hillary jokes and anti-politician jokes. And everything killed. And I was like, you know what? That audience clearly, no matter how they voted, felt the same way I did, which is just sort of like, let's take a fucking shower and get all this shit off of us. And I thought, I had 2 months off after that where I didn't have to be on camera. And I thought, I'm just going to sit down and start playing around with this. When you read the book, one of the first things I came up with was, I started with the first chapter, and then I thought of fake tweets because of Trump's tweeting, right? Yeah. And you'll see it when you see the book. Yeah. I stumbled on that idea, and I went, okay, this fucking idea could be comedy gold, because the idea is this. It's called 7 seconds ago. It's historical figures, if they had Twitter accounts, and Trump's inability to control himself at 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's Abraham Lincoln and Hitler and FDR and Betty Ford. Yep. Betty Ford. There's about 4 tweets from Betty Ford in the book, and I could have done a whole fucking fake tweet book.
Yeah,
so
that's a pretty big section of the book.
Yeah. So that's where I started.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
I think I asked you when you started writing the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I think we covered that background.
Okay.
So what I got from this book, and what you talk quite a bit about how celebrity has basically kind of taken over politics.
Yeah.
How did you come? I mean,
Well, because my kids, who are pretty savvy, they're millennials, they only knew, and it's no offense to them, they only knew of Donald Trump. They knew he was like a businessman, but they knew him really as the host of this show, they thought he was the host of The Apprentice. And they'd seen the show on television. They'd seen several iterations. So that was like a shock to them, the idea that somebody could come out of television and run, never mind win, right? So that, to me, listen, for better or worse, we've reached a point where a guy that's on television or a woman, a celebrity can get elected, right, if you get the right message. So fame tied in so much to, it really has tied in so much since social media took over. It's like boomed, the whole fame thing. Yeah. And I wanted to take my 25 years as a famous person and try, a lot of which has involved some very ridiculous experiences. You'll read them when you read the book. Because I tend to make a fool out of myself when I meet my heroes, especially my rock and roll heroes.
That is so endearing that you've been a famous person for that long, and you still get nervous around famous people.
I know. I'm glad that you think it's endearing, but
endearing.
It's fucking embarrassing sometimes. It really is. But I just don't. It's weird. It's just weird for me. But anyways, I thought through talking about what I've learned about fame and how empty it is ultimately, and the good stuff about it too, that I could express an idea, which is that if we are going to start electing like really famous people, there's a poll in the book that's true. That happened during the course of the election. Somebody polled the American people in detail about who are the 10 most trusted people in America. So when I heard about it, a buddy of mine was like, listen, I know what you're working on. Look up this poll. And I was like, why? And he's like, just fucking look it up. Out of the top 10 most trusted people in America, 8 are actors, okay? And 1 is Spielberg, okay? And then there's a scientist. Meanwhile, when you look at the list, you go like, how the fuck did they come up with the scientist? Because it's Tom Hanks is number 1, Sandra Bullock is number 2, Denzel is number 3, and Oprah, who's not on TV anymore, is like 47th, so I'm sure she's fucking pissed. But I was like, I mean, I don't know Tom Hanks. I've met him once. He seems like a nice guy. But people truly, obviously, trust Tom Hanks. I know Sandra Bullock. You
said she's the one that you would trust.
Yes, I know. Listen, I know. I've known Sandy. We both came up together. We got famous right at the same time. We were in Demolition Man together, which was really her big break. It was Demolition Man, and I've been joking about this, but it's really true. Like when we were younger, we did a movie. After that, called Two If by Sea together, and then I produced the thing that she was in. So we had a lot of parties. Like we would have parties for the crew or whatever, and it always involved having to go out and get booze. And I told it on Fallon the other night, I think. You know, one night we were at a party and there was way more people than I thought, and we were running out of booze. And I was like, listen, we got fucking 20 minutes before the liquor store closes, and we need 2 bottles of whiskey and 2 bottles of vodka. Here's some cash. Here's the keys to my truck. Can you be back in 20 minutes? She was like, yes! And she was back in 15 minutes with 4 bottles of each and change. I was like, wow, this is a trustable fucking person, you know? But meanwhile, I say that because she's also really nice, and you probably know this. Like, she's not for the publicity, but whenever there's a big tragedy, she did it again recently with the hurricanes and the floods. She gives like $1 million, you know, to charity. So I think she'd be a great fucking president. And I would get to go to the White House. Well, I don't think she wants me involved, actually. I think it would be Bullock, somebody else. Maybe Bullock Denzel. There you go. Yeah.
That's a ticket.
I mean, when I look at Trump, and you know
him, and you've worked with him.
I did. I worked with him.
Yeah.
He did a cameo on a ABC sitcom I did called The Job, and years and years ago, 99, 2000. He was charming, on time, knew his lines, nice to everybody in the crew. He was a completely different color than he is now. He was a really white guy. He was a really pale guy, and he did a thing for my charity on The Apprentice, which was his idea. Again, really nice, a complete pro in front of the cameras, and again, really pale. That was like 2003, I want to say. Yeah. And then the next time I saw him was at some charity event, and he was it wasn't even orange. It's not even really, I know it looks orange like on when he's photographed and stuff, but it's a weird color. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a crayon color.
And up close, if you ever get to meet the president, this will happen to you. Up close, you know when you see somebody, or when somebody says like, look, whatever you do, don't stare at the mole, right? Right? And then you meet the person and you're like, oh my God, look at the mole. Hi! I can't look at the mole. Oh, you know. When you're near him, you cannot stop staring at the hair. Yeah. And it's fucking remarkable. And it's like, I mean, it must be like a fucking 45-minute thing in the morning, because what really happens is, it's really his hair. But this stuff here goes down, and on this side, and around like that, and it's kind of plastered. But here, it's like, it all comes from here, and it's grown long. So he wraps it down and around, that's that little flap you always see, and then back over like that, and into here, right? And it's all sort of like sprayed down, right? So like when you're hanging out with him and you're going on camera, you know, you have to remember not to let your eyes be, you know, fucking stuck in the hair, because you're supposed to be saying your lines or whatever. But like whenever he bends over to get something off the table, we were all like, oh, you know, like, you know, it's amazing.
I think several laws.
Yeah, and I know people fucking
violated.
criticize Jimmy Fallon for not being political enough with him when he did the interview with him, but I thought the most amazing thing that Jimmy did for America was when he asked Trump right before the election when he was on if he could muss up his hair. Did you see that? And I think Trump thought he was just going to go like this, but instead Jimmy went like that, and that whole flap came off, and you're like, yeah! You know? That was pretty awesome.
So pretty early on in the book, you actually take us back to 9/11 as sort of the last, what you said was sort of the last time that you remember the country kind of being united. And I started thinking, damn, that was a really long time ago. So like that many years. I mean, really, when you think about it, that's the last time I think that all of us were on the same page, right? Like right after 9/11. And I talk about in the book about what happened, like the process, but it was like, you know, for about, I think it was about until January. Yeah,
well, in New York.
You said several months, yeah.
Yeah, in New York, personally living in New York and living downtown, I didn't get a finger from a cab driver until January. And I still remember it. And I was wrong. I was like, fuck this, I'm running across the street. And he gave me the finger, and I was like, oh, that feels kind of good. You know what I mean? That I haven't gotten the finger from anybody in New York in a long time. But then shortly thereafter, it all started to change. And now I think here's the fucking thing I think. I think politicians and people in Washington, you know, and people on TV, CNN and fucking Cox News, as I call it now, they fracture us. They get us into this fractured state of mind, you know. Like even like, you know, my friends are like, I've been watching fucking CNN all day. It's like, well, fucking change the channel, asshole. You know, there's plenty of other fucking things going on in the country, and they want us separated. But in fact, we're all just going out and working and doing our thing and living our lives and just fucking trying to get along. And you know, nothing's going to get done there. It's like today when they made the announcement about the Manafort thing. And you know, literally the Democrats are going like, this is it, we got Trump nipped by the balls. No, you don't. You don't really have him by the balls, because Trump's saying he doesn't really fucking know anything about what they were, and this is gonna go on now for another fucking 6 months. You know, so meanwhile, nothing's getting done. So I just like, I watch fucking Sports Center. You know what I mean? Fuck them. I'm not gonna fucking waste my time listening to both these fucking Chuck Schumer saying blah, 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 and fucking, you know, Trump's guy saying, but fuck you, I'm gonna watch Sports Center, you know? Well,
you know, so that's the past. You talk a lot about moving forward and kind of where we need to go next. What are you seeing for like 2020?
Who's gonna run?
Well, maybe not who's gonna run, but I know you kind of implied that perhaps a reality show might be a more effective way to choose our president.
I am joking about this. I have a chapter called America's Got Leaders, ! Now, I don't know if you heard me when I was on Howard Stern. Howard fucking loves the idea. And Howard said he would be a judge, okay? This is my idea. You can call it whatever you want. America's Got Leaders, or so you think you can lead, or whatever the fuck. But, I'm joking, but I'm not joking. That fucking election sucked. They always suck. And it's like 2 years, and it's how many fucking trillions of dollars on each side with these stupid PACs and everything. Meanwhile, we don't find anything out because the debates suck. All they do is bloviate, right? So I think we turn it into a reality show. Do like a 13-episode thing. Starts the beginning of August. You know, there's one episode a week. We all fucking watch it. You have Howard and Howie Mandel and Heidi Klum and a British person be the judges, right? I know it's funny, but it could really work, right? And then we make them dance and sing, and then we send them off on missions to solve things, and fucking, yeah, just like on The Apprentice, right? And then we eliminate week by week by week, and then that final week, the first week in November, we do the final episode with the last couple of people on there, and we vote by text, and the fucking winner is the winner, and that's it. I think it'd be fucking great, you know?
Sort of realistically speaking, though, I mean, do you see?
I think it could work. I don't think it's that far off, by the way.
Yeah. Well. I mean, do you see celebrity, though, coming in being a part of politics more and more? I mean, is this something that we should just kind of come to expect?
Yeah, because everybody's talking. They're saying, I love when they say this, that, somebody said this to me the other day, well, you're a fucking TV guy, you should be talking about politics. I'm like, you have a TV guy in the White House. I mean, and everybody, it's freedom of speech, right? And if you're a comedian, they kind of give you like a leeway because you're a comedian, so that's part of what you do. But unfortunately, I think that's the truth. If Oprah Winfrey declared tomorrow that she was going to run, or Tom Hanks, there'd be a fucking ton of people that would support them and vote for them. Now, go back to Ronald Reagan. And people, remember when he first got elected, people were talking about, oh my God, an actor. But he had been a politician for years and run a state. So the problem is we get Tom Hanks, he's never really run anything. Well, Trump never ran anything except a business, and he's running the country. So really, the president becomes a figurehead, right? The president becomes like the public face of whatever the government is that he's running. So I don't think it's that far off,
Do you think we'll see a woman in office? Do you think
Here's
that's
my fucking thing. And I'm not saying this just because, I'm surrounded by, I have sisters, my mom, my wife, my daughter. I think it's time for a woman to run the country, and I'll tell you why. Or you can, whatever. I just think people with cocks have screwed it up long enough. And by the way,
no comment.
We're the biggest democracy in the world. We created it, and there are democracies that we helped create that are run by women and have been in some cases for years, and we don't have a woman. So that's at this point ridiculous. So
coming soon then, you think?
I fucking hope so. I really do. Meryl Streep. Here's the thing about Meryl. She could play a different character every day. We'd never get bored.
Keep you guessing.
But Anna Navarro, I don't know if you know who she is. She's a Republican. I would vote for her in a fucking heartbeat. She's fantastic. You see her on CNN. Yeah, she's funny. She's smart. So I think it's time. I think it's really time. That's one of the things about Hillary. She had the election, but she was so flawed of a candidate that she missed it. She missed the boat.
Where did she go wrong? What do you think? What happened?
Number one, did you read Shattered? The book Shattered? Okay. Go out and buy the book Shattered. Make sure you guys bought my book already, so it's okay. Shattered is behind-the-scenes account from day one of the beginning of her campaign. And from page 1, sentence 4, she can't make up her mind about anything. She can't make up her mind if she should talk about the emails or not. She can't make up her mind about her motto. She had, by the way, the worst fucking motto, Hillary for America. What the fuck does that mean? It's like, cows for grass. It doesn't mean anything. Whatever you want to say about Trump, his motto resonated immediately with people. So, but that book, she is just trapped with indecision. The email thing was murderous, man. She should have just fucking, dealt with it right away and put it behind her, and she just couldn't. And then at a certain point, she just got afraid. When she had to lead, she tried, as we know in hockey, she tried to play defense. Like, don't do anything. Let's just hang out here back on, with the goalie and see what happens. And it fucking tumbled on top of her. Not to mention her husband's sexual history, because we all remember where we were on Grab the Pussy Friday, as we call it. Like the Kennedy assassination.
Like
right,
JFK.
when everybody thought he's dead in the water, and by Sunday night, before the debate, he had brought those Bill Clinton accusers out in that press conference. My two kids they knew about Bill Clinton's sexual background from hearing about it from my wife and I. But I had two young kids that were working for me from NYU at my office in New York. I went in on Monday and they were like, I didn't know about Bill Clinton's sexual past till they saw the Trump press conference. And it came back to bite her literally in the ass. So whoever they pick, the Democrats, to run, they got to make sure that somebody whose husband is not fucking, can keep his dick in his pants. I'm clearly not going to be a president, so I'm just... One of the great things about knowing you'll never run for office is you just say whatever the fuck you want. Although sometimes I wish I was a politician so I could just be in the White House and just go, shut the fuck up. Okay? Just shut the fuck up. Anyways.
So...
Sorry.
So in here, you spend a lot of time talking about fame, and you're kind of looking at it from all angles. You talk about some of the positive things that it's done in your life. You talk about the dark side, the ugly side. Now we're in this society, though, where it feels like everybody's trying to become famous.
Yes.
Through social media, YouTube, Instagram, all that. And what are your words of wisdom for these people who are putting themselves out there, hoping they'll get noticed?
Well, I talk about it in the book, but it's my observation that this is true. And it's interesting now because some friends of mine, guys that I've known for a long time, have retired recently. Jon Stewart retired from The Daily Show. And John and I have known each other since, like 1980 or 81 or something like that. We were not famous together for a long time and comedians and writers, David Letterman, who I came to know later. I met David when he was already famous. And they're dealing with it, the fact that, there's nothing more ephemeral in the world of fame than being a talk show host or a person, like in John's case, I don't consider that a talk show, but in his show is a daily, occurrence. So you don't, that's the stuff that disappears first. Like the reruns maybe run every once in a while, but the show you do that night at 11:30, it's 12:30, it's gone. Right? You might make a little imprint the next day, maybe for a couple of days with a certain piece. So once you're off the air, that's it. Now Letterman's really not recognizable because of the beard for the most part, and he had a fucking hard time with it, man. He had a really hard time with, especially if you're a comedian. Like, there's no place for your ideas to go. John, I don't think could give a fuck. John's just happy. His kids are still young. He gets to hang out with his kids a lot. Dave is coming back. I guess he's doing a Netflix show, which will only be like 6 episodes a year or something. Yeah. But Letterman I think he talked to Howard Stern about it, and he said he began to realize, like, he left the air, and within a few months, Stephen Colbert was doing really well, and he was like, oh fuck, right. Craig Ferguson, another old friend of mine, he said, the only thing he regrets is that his replacement, James Corden, fucking did so well so fast, So it doesn't last. And movie stars, like my kids have no fucking idea who John Wayne was. They have no idea who Cary Grant was. They won't watch, the only black and white movie they'll watch is Raging Bull. They're aware of certain movies that still last, like The Godfather. There's very few, Star Wars or stuff like that. But, they don't...
You mentioned Johnny Carson.
My kids have no idea who Johnny Carson was.
That just astounded me.
But it's because they never saw him.
Well,
and
right.
He's not on television
it makes sense
anymore.
When you think,
yeah.
Is there anybody here who doesn't know who Johnny Carson was? Don't be embarrassed. You can raise your hand.
We have an older audience.
Maybe we have an older audience.
But by the way, it's as it should be. You know what I mean? My kids, I tried to get my kids to watch. Here's an example of a movie that was in color. I tried to get my kids to watch Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Right? My kids thought I said this in the book. My kids, the first time we had a DVD, I said, "You guys want to see this?" The cover was Robert Redford and Paul Newman, and my son went, "Oh yeah, the chef." They only knew him from fucking salad dressing and popcorn. Which, by the way, that's all they should know, right? They have no fucking idea. And they knew Robert Redford. They were like, "Hey, that's the guy from the film festival thing," and they hated the movie. They were like, the one thing that lasted was music. That's the thing that, even without me telling my kids about it, my kids found out who Louis Armstrong was because a couple of his songs still came into movies or played on commercials or whatever. They found the Rolling Stones and the Beatles on their own. Tony Bennett, they discovered it. So I started to realize, you know what it is? A 3-minute song or a piece of music that is emotionally effective, that is the only thing that lasts through all these generations. You know what I mean? John Wayne, my kids have no idea. Tony Bennett, they fucking know like 6 of his songs. So, guys like me, I have asshole. So I guess they'll be playing that at my funeral probably. Good thing I wrote that fucking song, huh? Jesus Christ. Fuck. I just came to realize that. I should have put that in the book.
It's your legacy.
What an idiot. Sorry.
You know, and I've got to say, I am so jealous of some of the encounters with musicians that you've had. But then a lot of them seemed like they were really embarrassing, though.
They almost all were.
All of them are. Almost all of them are in the book.
The only ones that weren't embarrassing were the Keith Richards ones, because they were just weird.
They were weird.
Yeah.
They were
fucking weird. And you
Yeah.
know, and they keep happening. So
Yeah.
you guys haven't read the book yet, but I don't think I've told these stories on any of the talk shows that I was on. I told one maybe on Stern.
Yeah.
But Keith Richards, it's a long story short, I got to work with the Stones during the Voodoo Lounge tour, which is like 94, 95. They wanted to make a movie of the tour, and they thought it would be something different and new, so they wanted us to hang out, me and Ted Demme, who's an amazing director. He directed The Ref and my No Cure for Cancer and Lock and Load and my MTV spots. He was the creator of Yo MTV Raps, the show that broke rap and hip hop on MTV. We hung out with them for a couple of months on the tour, and I don't know what it is with Keith. By the way, Keith has only ever called me kid, ever. And so I hung out with him in 1994 and 95. Then I didn't see him for 5 or 6 years. And then he showed up while I was on vacation in the Caribbean. He fucking popped up out of the water. You'll read the book. It's in the book, right? And then we were there for like a week, and he kept showing up around there. I don't know where he was staying. In the same clothes, by the way, for 5 days. Yeah, a woman's blouse. He had a woman's blouse, and he had Daisy Duke cutoffs, and no shoes, and no cigarettes. He never had cigarettes. He always had to borrow cigarettes from me. And he kept calling me kid. And of course I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, and I hung out with him and drank with him and stuff. And then, let me think now. So that was around 2000, let's say that was 2001 or 2. So then, it was 13 years later, I saw him at the birthday party that I talk about in the book. I was at a friend's birthday
coloring,
party.
yeah.
This guy had a birthday party, and I don't want to ruin the book for people, but I ran into Keith there, and it was like I just left the room, like in the Caribbean. And I was like, hey, and he was like, hey kid, so listen, I need you to find me a hot pink crayon. He was coloring in a kid's coloring book, and an ashtray, smoking. And I'm like, okay. So I'm convinced he thinks I'm Kevin Bacon. That's what I really think.
That happens a lot, yeah.
So I think he just thinks I'm Kevin Bacon, and I went and got him the ashtray and the.
You tracked down the crayon.
I did. I tracked down the crayon in the house. I had to yell at a bunch of kids to get it. Listen, my whole thing with Keith is like, my relationship is so weird with him that if I see him again in 5 years, I'm sure he's going to go, hey kid, this is what I need, and I'm just going to go get it. You know what I mean? It's fucking Keith Richards, man. What am I supposed to do?
Right, Right.
What an amazing guy, though. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
People. I don't know if this story's in the book, but one of the things that endeared me to that guy. I mean, that's one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite rock band of all time. It's like the Stones and the Who were really, for me, more than the Beatles. Really, like the Beatles were more for my brother. My brother and I, my older brother and I, separated by 3 years. So I remember the Stones. Like I remember seeing the Stones on Ed Sullivan, not the Beatles. And the Who really fucking. That was a big band for me when I was a teenager.
Me too.
Yeah. So. And I got to meet those guys, but
you got to meet them too.
Yeah, and they both involved the asshole song. When I met Keith, was in the dressing room at RFK Stadium on that Voodoo Lounge tour. The first day that we met them, we met Mick, and he was like explained the whole thing to us, and he said, "But I want you guys to go in and talk to Keith, and he's got some ideas." And I walked in, and Keith, it was a setup, and Keith and Ron Wood were playing the asshole song as we walked into the room. And I was like, I will fucking bury a body for these guys. And I did a charity gig from Michael J. Fox one time, and he said, so listen, we're doing this charity gig at Irving Plaza, which is where I taped No Cure for Cancer. It's a club in New York that it holds about 600 people, but the Who were playing it for 250, a high-rolling people that were donating to the Parkinson's thing. He said, they only want you guys to open, you have to use their equipment. My band was like, yeah. It was fucking, I was using fucking Rogers taped up mic. It was fucking great. My guitar player was using Pete's, forget it. And they said, they want you to do two things. They want you to sing the asshole song, and then they want you to do like a special song about this one guy who was in the audience who was a friend of theirs. So I was like, like, what fucking world am I living in where Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey are paying us, essentially, to fucking sing the asshole song and then introduce them? And it makes your head explode. You know?
Totally. No, but I'm still jealous. David Bowie, Rod Stewart.
Yeah, but Bowie didn't know who the fuck I was. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Bowie. I wasn't quite famous yet. You know, it was just starting to break, and I was on a British show and with comedy and musical guest, and David was the musical guest with Tin Machine, and. You had to go outside to smoke. It was filmed in this theater in the West End in London, and they said, if you want to smoke, there's a door downstairs and it goes into an alley. So, and he was still smoking at the time. This is probably 91. And I was like, when I get there, put my shit in the dressing room, go right to the smoking door, fucking hang out, and just wait because you know he's gonna come down. And I did, and sure enough, like fucking David Bowie walks through this door, and I'm fucking standing there, and he's like, do you have a light? And I'm like, I mean, I can't describe to you guys, like, I was a million fucking things are running through my mind, right? Like what I'm gonna say, and I'm like, yeah, I got one. And as I'm lighting the cigarette, I'm just fucking getting ready to just launch in, like, okay, so you don't wanna say the stupid shit, like, and I go, hey, man, I'm the comedian, I'm Denis Leary, I'm on the show tonight, I'm from Boston. And he was like, Boston? Stephen Wright, who went to college with me, the comedian, and Bobcat Goldthwait, who started in Boston, were already famous, right? And he was like, my two favorite comedians are from Boston. Bobcat Goldthwait, blah, 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 blah. He's talking about Bobcat, blah, 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 blah. And the whole time, I wrote about it in the book. I'm like, when is he gonna fucking shut up about Bobcat Goldthwait? And he's like, what's he like? What's he really like? Is that screaming thing? I mean, blah, 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 blah. I met him once, and he seemed like a really nice guy, but is that just like an act? What's an act? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, Bobcat, yeah, no, but you know, blah. And next thing I know is, what's Stephen Wright like? Because he's weird, because I met him. I love him. He's a fucking genius. You think he's a genius? He's a genius, right? Yeah, he is a genius. And all of a sudden, this guy goes, David, we're ready for sound check. And David Bowie goes, all right, nice to meet you, Kevin. And I don't think it was a Kevin Bacon. I think he just thought I was a Kevin. And then I never saw him again, ever. I know.
So he died thinking that your name was Kevin.
Yep.
Yep. But you're used to that. You're used to getting Kevin and Jane and Willem and
The list is in the book.
Yeah.
From day one, right from when I first got famous, and full of myself. I was in an airport like in the first first summer when I was famous, and I noticed that people were noticing me and smiling at me, like happy to see me, and I was like, fuck, I am famous, people love me. And then one day at the airport, a guy came up with his wife and a camera, and days before cell phones, and he was like, hey man, can we take a picture and could you sign this? And I'm like, yeah. So I take the picture and I sign, and when I got done signing and gave it to him, he was like, what the fuck is this? And my handwriting is a little messy, so I was like, oh, it's my name, Denis Leary. He's like, I thought you were fucking Willem Dafoe, man. which was bad enough, but then he fucking threw the thing in the trash. So then that's when I was like, all right, and I got Dafoe over and over again. And I got Kevin Bacon right off the bat. People love Kevin Bacon. I can tell you how much they love him. They think he's great. Bryan Adams.
I forgot about Bryan Adams.
Yeah,
that
Bryan
was
Adams.
such a dad moment.
Yeah.
Total dad
the
moment.
The Beyonce thing.
Yeah. That was adorable, actually.
But I'd been getting Bryan Adams for years before Beyonce thought I was Bryan Adams.
I might get Bryan Adams.
And I fucking love Beyonce. But that's my daughter's. I don't know if you've heard this story before. I think I might have told it someplace before. But my daughter fucking worships Beyonce, and I love her. But my daughter came to this charity event, Fashion Rocks in New York, and Beyonce was, one of the big performers that night, as was Bryan Adams. And I didn't come across Beyonce in the midst of that evening and a previous Fashion Rocks. I'd never met her face to face, because sometimes I introduce the people, and sometimes I'm off stage and a voice, on the speakers introduce them, whatever. And it's always busy. There's a million fucking things going on backstage. But this night I was like, you're gonna meet Beyonce. I'm gonna make sure it happens. And my daughter had a bunch of friends with her. And as soon as the show was done, there was an after party. We went to the celebrity exit, like where you go to the limos, and we just fucking waited for Beyonce. And she was coming down the hallway, and I made sure that she wasn't going to miss me. I was like, Beyonce, I just wanted to say you were fantastic tonight. And I was about to go like, this is my daughter. And she goes, so were you, Bryan. See you later. And my daughter was like, I was like, oh man, huh? That was pretty crazy. And my daughter was really embarrassed in front of her friends. She was like, Dad, she thought you were Bryan Adams. I was like, who gives a fuck? Let's go to the party. I'm Bryan Adams. We'll get a picture with her, okay? So Beyonce can think I'm fucking Bryan Adams forever, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you said Bryan Adams rocked it that night, right?
Yeah, Bryan Adams killed that night.
Yeah.
So, and she wasn't at the party, of course, Beyonce. But I looked for her, you know? And then I get John Bon Jovi. I don't get that so much anymore because he let his hair just go like gray.
Yeah. And you're natural, right?
Yeah, this is natural, yeah. And I get, I've gotten Ellen DeGeneres when my hair is really short, and which makes Ellen really fucking happy. And as a matter of fact, I was in Cleveland, which I write about in the book. I was doing a football movie in Cleveland. My hair was really short. My guy wore slacks and a sport coat and a T-shirt. And I went outside to smoke. We were shooting in a hotel, and I went outside to smoke. And it was like I walked into lesbian town. I had no idea what was going on. There were like lesbians everywhere, and there was like a bus with lesbians getting off, and there was a table here with lesbians signing up lesbians and giving out badges. And
so it was a
and
Pride
quickly
week
I
or
was
something?
like, oh, it's like Gay Pride weekend in Cleveland, right? And as I'm realizing that, looking at the stuff on the table, this woman yells out, "Oh my God, it's Ellen!" And even I was like, "Ellen's here," and she's looking at me, and I'm like, "Oh no, and I said I'm Denis Leary, and she was like, "No, your hair's too short for Denis Leary." And I'm like, "No, I'm fucking Denis Leary." And so I sent Ellen a message about that, and she was like, "Great, fucking great." And then I got Jane Lynch when I was shooting Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. Yeah, and that was an awesome moment.
And I hear a rumor that there's a Kellyanne Conway.
I said that first.
You said that,
I noticed myself when she started popping up. I'm like, hey, I fucking look like this girl. And then I was like, and I'm not kidding. It's just like the game show thing. I'm half kidding. I'm telling you, they're going to make a Trump biopic. They do something about every presidency. There's some kind of movie made, right? And all I want out of the whole Trump presidency is please let me play Kellyanne. Jeffrey Tambor is a friend of mine. He's a fucking amazing actor, and he deserves his Emmys and his awards for Transparent. I think he's genius on that show, but I think I can beat him at the Emmys playing Kellyanne. It's my turn. Forget Hillary. It's my fucking turn. And I've come close. I've been nominated for Emmys, but I've never won it, and I think the Kellyanne Conway role could do it for me.
That could do it. And it wouldn't be your first time in a dress either.
Nope.
You can walk in heels. You've got that down.
I can barely walk in heels. That was the fucking hardest thing that night. It's in the book. The Beyonce night. I had as a gag. I had to wear giant heels and a gown to do this gag. And man, I was like, you gotta fucking be kidding me. I had no idea. It was crazy. Felt like I had vertigo, you know?
Like you're teetering.
Yeah, and all the makeup and the earrings and the jewelry, and Kid Rock was like staring at my ass.
Yeah, people were checking you out.
Kid Rock was playing with Leonard Skinner that night, and I came down. I had Keira Knightley's gown on, right? That's what from the Pirates of the Caribbean premiere. They pulled it out. It was about this big, and they're like, oh, it's stretchy, and I put it on. It was stretchy, and then they put on makeup and everything, and I'm coming downstairs to go on stage. And as I'm getting off the elevator backstage, Kid Rock and Leonard Skinner were getting in, and they were like leering at me. And Kid Rock, who I'd already met, was like, "Hey, man, nice ass." And I'm like, "Hey." And one of the guys in Leonard Skinner goes, "Hey, look at those tits," like making fun of my tits. And I was like, "Hey, fuck you, man." And it was the first time like I felt like objectified, and I was kind of like. And one of the people who helped dress me, one of the girls said I had girl legs, you know, like really, which I do. I have long, skinny girl legs. And I was like, I said to fucking Leonard Skinner, I was like, hey man, I fucking got better legs than you do, so fuck you. Like, I was like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? This is ridiculous. You know? And then will.i.am came up and complimented me on my fucking jewelry. With no laughter at all. He's like, dude, digging the fucking diamonds, man. I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now?
You saw the other side.
Yeah, I did. I saw the other side. I saw the other side.
Yeah. Well, you wanted to questions?
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. So I think we are at the audience question.
Oh,
part.
cool.
So we want to allow you guys to ask some questions. So we have microphones set up in the aisles. If you want to ask a question, come up and go ahead and line up there. And then Scotty and I will be on either side to help field them. While you guys get your courage up, will you tell them the story about Chrissie Hynde that you told backstage?
Oh, yeah.
This made me so happy.
Okay. Are you guys Chrissie Hynde fans? Yeah, okay. So, oh, God, I'm a huge Pretenders fan, huge Chrissie Hynde fan. I should have put this in the book. I totally forgot about it. Fuck. Alzheimer's, I'm telling you, I'm getting it. I was in London, and I'd only ever seen Chrissie Hynde live. I'd never had the opportunity to meet her. And I always had a crush on her. And the kind of crush, like even my wife was like, yeah, okay, you're allowed to like drool over Chrissie Hynde. A friend of mine who's only famous in England, a comedian, said, dude, I've got a fucking invite. Chrissie Hynde is like co-hosting an art opening for this friend of hers. And it's only like 50 people are invited. It's like a private event. There'll be photographers and stuff. But, huh? And I'm like, fuck, dude, this is amazing. So we go. And he's kind of a Chrissie Hynde freak too. And it's literally everybody in the room is a fucking hugely famous person. Elton John, fucking Paul McCartney. I mean, it's unbelievable. You're walking through the room, you're just like, Jesus Christ. But we're looking for Chrissie Hynde, all right? And, people are like pointing at paintings and hanging out and talking about paintings. It's not my milieu. So the two of us are walking along like, let's find them and then pretend we're fucking talking about a painting that's near them. So we find Chrissie Hynde fucking looking amazingly hot with her painter friend, and they're like at this painting and talking. So we go to the painting next to it, and we're acting like we're talking about it. So just to give you guys an idea of like what it must have looked like if Chrissie Hynde is over here, we're like, she's right here, my friend's here. We're going like, yeah, blah 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 blah, like giant fisheye, like, blah, 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 and trying to hear what she's saying, like giant ears, like this, and thinking like we're being cool. And all of a sudden, I just glanced at her for a second, and she goes, "The fuck are you looking at?" I fucking froze. And I was actually gonna say like he was looking at you too, but like I couldn't talk. She goes, "Who brought you here? How'd you get in here?" And I go, "Oh, I came with him. I came with him." And she was like, "Who brought you? Who gave you the invite?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know, but I'm supposed to be here." And she was like, "Oh, whatever. Mind your own fucking business, man. Let's take a fucking picture next time." And she walked away, and we were like, "Fucking high five." Chrissie Hynde almost kissed our ass. It was fucking awesome. We could not have been happier. It was fucking great. That's the Chrissie Hynde story.
All right. We have a question over here.
Where? Oh, sorry.
Not so much a question, but a statement. I am a part of a little rural fire department and an EMS provider here in Grand Rapids, and I hope that you realize the impact that Rescue Me had. We saw the first episode. We had all heard about it, and we had all gone and seen it in our own little, in our own time slots, and came back to the station, and we were, what the hell was that? Did you see that? That was amazing, because so many times EMS and fire is represented on TV in such a wrong way. I've never slept with my partner, I've never, because it always does that. You have the first big scene, and then all of a sudden they're looking at each other across the steering wheel, and they're in the back going at it. It's like, you gave us a realistic, wonderful representation of what we do and the struggles that people go through in that industry. I'll just call it an industry. So I just want to share my appreciation for that. It means the world. Your charity means the world. We've got Rescue Me shirts in our house. We gave them for Christmas that year. But that means the world to a lot of us.
Thank you so much.
Us normal people.
Well, that means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you. If it means, just so you know, we fucking love doing that show. I mean, that was just like, there's several of my friends in that show. There's people that I specifically, with my partner, Peter Tolan, who's, an amazing writer. He did Larry Sanders with Gary Shandling, and he wrote some of the greatest movies of the last 25 years. But we just fucking loved going to work. And the last day that we shot on that show, one of my best friends, a guy named Terry Quinn, was a technical advisor. He was a firefighter. He became a firefighter in New York when we were in our early 20s. And so his crew, became part of our families. And those guys were all technical advisors on the show. And that last day when we were finishing that show, man, it was like grown men, grown firefighters, like had tears in their eyes because we went to work every day, and if we weren't laughing our asses off, we were, the dramatic scenes were heavy and tough sometimes, but we got to do action scenes. It was great. We loved it. I'm glad that everybody still loves it too, because we loved it so much. 2 claps from one guy. I don't know. I don't know. No, that was awesome.
I'm sorry if I sound a little nervous. I've been a fan of yours for over a decade. Rescue Me is my favorite TV show. And my brothers are firefighters, and the fact that you have a charity helping out firefighters really means a lot to me. But the question I have here is, I've always wanted a career in stand-up comedy. It's been like a dream of mine for years, but I have horrible, horrible anxiety, and stage fright is just the devil for me. So what advice do you have for somebody who wants a performing career or an acting career or a stand-up comedy career, but it gets a lot of anxiety about it?
Well, have you ever performed in public at all?
It ended badly.
Have you, were you ever in a band or anything?
I did some stand-up and comedy in college, and I was in my school band, but that's about as far as it went.
Now, do you know who Stephen Wright is, the guy I referenced before, the comedian?
Oh, God, yes.
Okay, now let me tell you a story about Stephen Wright, because I went to school with Stephen.
Okay.
Stephen went to Emerson College to study writing and filmmaking. Yeah, Emerson College, yeah. And he was literally the most fucking painfully shy person I've ever met in my life. I mean, he could not talk to women. He would never talk in class. He was a genius. He was a brilliant fucking writer. Deathly afraid of any kind of public speaking. He couldn't even do what you're doing now when we were in college, like ask a question. We graduated, and I still remember this day. Another friend of ours, a mutual friend, said to me, "Hey, do you fucking know that Lenny Clark, who's an old friend of mine, was in Rescue Me?" Lenny! Yeah, Lenny Clark, who was running a talent show, not even a comedy show. He was running a talent show out of this Chinese restaurant that his brother owned, right? Yeah. And I'd been to that show. It's like it was literally like, there was one guy that had a midget, and the midget would bite his elbow, and he'd lift him up, and for free beer, you know what I mean? And then a guy would sing like a fucking James Taylor song. It was a horrible show. And so this buddy goes, Steve Wright got up at Lenny's talent show the other night and told jokes. And I went, what are you talking about? Was he fucked up? He goes, no, he said he was a little high. He didn't get drunk, he got high. And he went on stage and he turned around and faced the back wall, right? And very quietly told these weird jokes that he was always doing, these kind of weird jokes. His act is like the way he is in real life. So he told the jokes like this, and he fucking killed, right? Because the people liked the jokes, but he couldn't face the audience. So, like a week later, I went to see him do this. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go up and do this. And he faced the back wall. And eventually, Lenny said to him, listen, asshole, you got to turn around and face the fucking crowd. This is fucking crazy. Like, this is insane. And eventually, he gradually worked himself into facing the audience, but he wouldn't look at them. He would just look at the ground, right, and tell these jokes. Well, now, for the last how many years, he's been one of the most fucking famous working comedians in the country. He just had to overcome it. So there's only one way to dive into the fire. You know what I mean? If you want to play rock and roll, you got to get up on stage, with the band. If you want to do stand-up, you could just make your jokes about your anxiety, your fear. You know what I mean? And that's like, they'll be with you. It's actually a great way to get them on your side.
It's endearing, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really
just the little
is. It
speech
is
that you
endearing.
gave before you asked your question, it's very endearing. You can do it.
Well, before I get off the mic, I just want to say I finally kicked #1 off the bucket list because you came here to Grand Rapids.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thanks.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like on the set of The Last Temptation of Christ?
Well, me and Mr. Scorsese.
But serious question. The Sandlot, the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah.
Right? You played Bill.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you have on stage, but could we have a quick catch, you and I? Could we have a quick catch?
You want me to throw you a baseball?
Do you have one?
No, I don't.
All right, sorry.
I don't travel with baseballs. Hi.
Hi. I'll continue the firefighting theme that has been developed. We're from the same hometown, Worcester, Massachusetts.
Oh my God. What neighborhood are you from?
Maine South.
That's where I'm from.
Same high school, I'm much older than you are.
Did you go to St. Peter's?
St. Peter's.
The original St. Peter's.
The original St.
Oh,
we were
my
both
fucking-
altar boys at the same church.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got kicked out for drinking the holy wine, which was fucking awesome and not fucking magic at all, by the way. Just in case you have any kids that are thinking of trying the holy wine, I thought it would like give me magic, but it didn't do anything.
And I was back on a sabbatical in Worcester in 1999 when the horrible fire accident happened with the 6 who died, including your cousin and a very good friend of our family's, Jimmy Lyons. So I just wanted to thank you for continuing to make us so aware of what firefighters are doing.
Yeah.
But it's
Well,
great to see you too from Worcester.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Yes.
Hi, I don't really have a question so much as more of a statement.
Okay.
I've been a big fan of yours for a very long time. I think I was roughly 13 when The Ref came out.
Yes.
And I went to it with my older sister and my mother, who was born and raised in West Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh, man.
So we're watching The Ref, and the obscenities and the swearing, and the fuck, and the tirades, and Mary Ellen is just, this is really funny. And it was a hilarious experience for me, and not so much for Mary Ellen.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for all of that, and thank you for rescuing me, and thank you for everything else you've done, because I think we all love you a lot.
Oh my God, you guys are so nice. Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
Hey, Dennis, longtime fan. I've seen a lot of your stuff. The one thing I love about your career is you pop up in everything.
Yeah.
And it's like the scene in Toy Soldiers where you're just like, it's this tiny role, but it's a very memorable role. I've seen a lot of your stuff. I've seen like Lake Boat, all the weird, obscure ones.
Oh, wow.
And big fan of Lake Boat. I just had a question for you, and it was, you've been in a lot of stuff. I mean, like just tons of stuff. Is there anything that you regretted?
Oh, yeah. But, I'm like as we say in Worcester, I'm a shark. Like, I just swim forward. I mean, that's sort of like, I don't know if that's genetic or whatever, but, I just move forward. It doesn't mean I don't have regrets, but I don't have any real regrets in terms of life. Like, even though I fucking hated that school we just talked about, St. Peter's, because I was a horrible student. I was a terror. It was fun, because first of all, it's only like 2 blocks from the fucking apartment I grew up in, so it was like 2 blocks to walk to school, but I never skipped because all my friends were there, and we tortured the fucking nuns. You know what I mean? So like, I always found a way. So even when I was starting out, I needed to learn how to act on film because I was trained as a theater actor at Emerson, and then I went into stand-up comedy. So I didn't know anything about how to be on camera. So the first few movies I was in, I just wanted to get the experience of it, right? Big films and small films. And then like, even films that like you get to it in 2 weeks and you're like, this is a giant fucking piece of shit. Like, I was getting paid so much money, I'm like, all right, it's a giant piece of shit, but I'm getting paid.
You have to work.
Yeah,
right?
I gotta work, and I had 2 kids, My son was born in 1990, before I was famous. My daughter was born in 1992, which is the year I got famous. So I had to I had to be a dad. And, but I always walked away with something, It's like, it's weird though, when you look back on it, like, the batting average for anybody is like, it's just like baseball. If 3 out of 10 movies that you make are like memorable, like big, important, or hit films, that's like a fucking Hall of Fame average, right? I didn't know that as I was doing them. I do one and go like, God damn it, I'm in another piece of shit. This is fucking, I gotta get me a good movie, right? That's when I started to self-generate. And like the Ref was a project that was written by this guy, Richie LaGravenes, who was already an Oscar-nominated screenwriter by the time I became famous, but we went to Emerson together. He was a terrible actor. He was the worst fucking actor at Emerson. But he'd become a great screenwriter. And I got heat from No Cure for Cancer, and Ted Demme got heat because he directed my MTV spots. So we formed a company and started to, we made the Ref for our production company. We did a movie called Blow, which Teddy directed, which was a story of another friend of mine from Boston, George Young. So I started to learn how to, and then I met Peter Tolan, who was doing Larry Sanders with Gary Shandling, which to me is still maybe the greatest comedy of all time. And I started thinking about television. But in between, I don't regret anything, because I think back, I got to work in Wag the Dog with De Niro and fucking Dustin Hoffman and Willie Nelson. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, that's just crazy, So there are moments like that, and I did a film with Clint Eastwood that I never saw. Nobody else saw it either, called True Crime. I didn't care how the movie came out. I was just like, to work with that guy and to learn from him, just fucking amazing experience, Dude, sitting with Robert De Niro and Dustin Hoffman on this hill in California at 3 o'clock in the morning, waiting for like the next setup. And Willie's high all the time. So we're all straight. I think De Niro was on NyQuil because he had a cold. But we're straight. He's high as a kite, Willie. And he's got his guitar, and he's playing Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. And I think I'm freaking out, but De Niro and Hoffman are looking at me like, this is crazy. I mean, it's fucking crazy. It's Willie Nelson, So, no regrets. Fuck it.
Thank you.
You had to walk to that mic. You could have just yelled it from there. Sorry. I could hear you perfectly. Yeah.
Do you have any advice on how to navigate political discussions with friends or family members in this environment? Because I feel like, I know. Well, I feel like the people that are crazy, I feel like it's like I just, and crazy on either side. I can just kind of walk away.
Well,
but I feel like it's hard when you have people that you love that are supporting things like, that you feel like that's a white nationalist. Or how do you navigate it?
What we do in my house is, God, my mother and my father. My father died a long time ago. My mother's 90. She still walks 5 miles a day. She lives in the old neighborhood. She won't move out. The neighborhood's falling down around her. She doesn't give a fuck. My mother has always been, since I was a kid, she's from Ireland. She's just a truth speaker, for better or worse. And she's also funny. But in our house, if you weren't expressing yourself, they would go, "What the fuck's up with you? What's with the smile on your face, mister?" Like they're always digging in to find out what's going on. So my mother is like at Christmas time or Thanksgiving, is the first person, if you start expressing something that she disagrees with, and she, by the way, she's a real liberal, she just starts yelling and screaming at you. So there's no hiding it. But the rule is, once dinner starts, you can't talk about that shit. You can only talk about family stuff or non-political stuff. No religion, no politics during dinner. So that's kind of what we use. Like, you're allowed to talk about whatever you want, but once we start passing the gravy around, it's fucking no religion. Because one of my sisters is Anne Marie. My sister, she's a year behind me. She's an Irish twin, and she married literally my best friend from the time I was 3 years old. Yeah, she married. She wasn't even supposed to. He wasn't. Don't even get it. It's like he had 3 unbelievable-looking sisters, and there was an agreement between the 2 families: nobody touches the sisters. And he secretly started fucking my sister behind my back, but. They've been married for like 30-something years, and they're very happily married. But my sister goes off on these rampages, about God, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not talking about God. You don't want to get me started about the Catholic Church. So I think that's the best thing. Just yell it out, then hug it out. That should be the T-shirt.
That's good Thanksgiving advice. We've got Thanksgiving coming up.
A little bit short. Hi, Dennis.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. My husband is a firefighter, and he's right here, and one of his coworkers is over there.
Hey guys.
Yeah, right. And it really spoke to me when you were talking about politics and how the country came together after 9/11. And I really identify with the fact that everybody was together. Firefighters and EMS and first responders were just awesome. And then after a while, it just went away. And to me, it seems so like people just don't realize how hard it is to be a first responder. And I don't think they have enough respect, and especially in their families too. My husband's gone 24 hours a day. So I just really appreciate you saying something like that, because that's exactly how I thought too.
Well, I will tell you guys this, and we were talking about it before we came out on stage tonight. So, I mean, listen, this book is designed, I hope, to make you laugh your ass off, and hopefully out loud quite a few times. But there is a chapter in there, it's called Red, White, and True. And in that chapter, there are some funny moments in the chapter, but I wrote the chapter is about 12 people in my life that I was either related to or became close with, who did amazing things with their lives, or with moments in their lives of great challenge. And I talk about the Worcester fire in detail, and I talk about 9/11 in detail, in both cases from the perspective of the firefighters and the recovery afterwards, like the recovery of the bodies and the recovery of the community. And it gets pretty serious. But out of the 12 people, I don't tell you any of the political affiliations that those people have. And a couple of them are people that are famous, or that because of the coverage of the events, you could actually Google and find out, but I purposely didn't mention it because none of it mattered in the, when I think, I can't even think, the only thing I remember about 9/11 politically, in terms of the fighters that I knew, were how much they but this happened before 9/11. They hated Giuliani because he was already fighting them on a contract. And his best friend, he had appointed fire commissioner, and the guy was a fucking failure as the fire commissioner. That was the only political part that you would ever hear from firefighters during that time. They hated their commissioner at the time. Tom Von Essen was his name, who was just appointed by Trump to be the ambassador to Puerto Rico. But anyways, the chapter is meant to point that out. My wife was an EMT for years, and so I dealt with it at home. Her racing out in the middle of the night sometimes, and I just think that's one of the things I learned from Cam Neely, who I became friends with, during his playing career, because his parents both died of cancer, and because he was a famous hockey player, he started to use his fame to develop a thing in Boston to help fight cancer and help families who were dealing with cancer. So it was the first time I saw, a friend of mine who had fame change into something else. He was best friends with Mike Fox. They both came from Vancouver. So when Mike got diagnosed, he didn't tell the world at first, but he was already watching Cam. He was starting to think like, maybe I should do something. And before he even announced his foundation, he was doing stuff behind the scenes. Anyways, that was a big one, because watching him, get dealt that blow at age 29, you're like, fuck, man, this is like a crushing blow. And like anybody, he's written about this. It doesn't have to be said by me, but in the beginning, he was like, fuck this. Like, why me? And then very soon thereafter, he got to this point where he was like, well, why not me? You know what I mean? Like, he felt like, I'm already famous. I've got all this money. I've got all this, my kids are healthy. Maybe I should, turn this into something else. So witnessing that, I was like, Mike he does not care who you vote for as long as you're involved in helping his cause. And Parkinson's hits both sides of the aisle. So that chapter is specifically to remind all of us, including myself, like, when something bad happens, which I think is one of the great things about this country. Like, I write about it in the book. We've always led the world in fucking charity. When something bad happens, Americans are famous for opening their wallets, no matter how much or how little they can give. I mean, we are famous for that. We've always been that way. So I just want to remind us all, that's
why we don't suck,
That's
right?
why we don't suck, you know what I mean? It's why we're fucking great. That and hockey. Sorry.
I was wondering, when you get involved in projects like Sirens and Sex and Drugs that for some reason the networks cancel for some stupid reason. Does that discourage you from pitching other projects, or
No,
does that make
fuck
you
no.
work harder? Or?
No. No, I mean, it makes me sad usually because, I like the actors, or if it's fun to do. Sex and Drugs was hard because it involved writing music and using musicians. So that was like a 10-month cycle, that show, because you'd have to have the musicians during the off season developing music, and then you'd have to go into the rehearsal space for at least 3 or 4 weeks because some of the actors, including myself, sang. Then you had to go in the studio for 2 months. So that was a very expensive show. So I kind of understood, because now it's very hard to get high ratings in any form, especially on cable. The numbers are small. People binge watch. I don't know about you. My mother's 90. I mentioned that, right? My mother binge watches. She doesn't watch anything when it's on anymore. She'll watch 10 episodes at a time. So we're in a different world. And, FX, they were great with that show, but they were still dependent on numbers to a certain extent. But I just move on. I have another show I'm developing now that I think I'm going to star in if I get it to air. And no, like I said, shark, baby, swim, swim forward.
All right, I think we've got time for 2 more questions. This is my friend Nathan.
Hey, Nathan.
Hey, your role in Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll is kind of an evolution of some of the characters and things you've been doing. I'm wondering, what is your favorite episode out of that series?
Out of Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll?
Oh, yes, out of Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll.
Fuck.
Right? That's my favorite, too.
Yeah. Shit. Wow, that's a great question, man. That's a tough one.
That's why I'm here.
I could tell you my favorite scene.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen the series, but if and when you do, and you saw the series, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so you know that the woman who played my girlfriend, Elaine Hendricks, who I just love, with a lot, same thing on Rescue Me, and anything I do, if I have an actor that, Elaine and I had done a movie together years before where she played a small part back in the 90s, and I thought she was terrific, and I discovered that she could improvise. So when I was writing Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, we were in the writer's room and we thought of her, and there's a scene, the scene where she tells me that she blew Richie Sambora? Okay. So the writer's room, the writers had come up with the idea of what if she had blown or had sex with like some famous guy and never told you? And I was like, okay, that's good. I like that. And so I was like, who do we pick? And so we're thinking, it's a stupid meeting to have, but you have to have like an hour-long meeting. It's me and a couple of girls and a couple of guys, and we're like, we're pacing and smoking, going like, now who would be a funny guy for her to have blown, right? Like, you don't want it to be Keith, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause that's like almost understandable for a guy. So we're like, which bands? And then we go Bon Jovi. And I'm like, well, if she blows Bon Jovi, it's almost understandable. He's a good-looking guy. Richie Sambora. Now, at this point, I had met Richie Sambora, and he's actually a really nice guy. And I'm like, so we're going to have to call Richie Sambora. And so, anyways, we pick it, and we wrote the scene. Anyways, I tell. We give Elaine the script, and she goes, all right, so listen, when I'm improvising, if we're in a scene and I think we're going to play around, I'll put up 2 cameras or maybe 3, which means that both actors or all the actors are on camera, and you basically can do whatever the fuck you want, and it's all captured in one, right? So it's almost like being on stage. So she goes, listen, I really like the idea that I slept with a famous rock and roll guy, and that you're just discovering that I did this stuff while we were, broken up when we were younger. She goes, but can I just take off with the idea and you're gonna have a couple cameras up? And I go, yeah, whatever. So that fucking scene, I had no idea. Look at my face in that scene. I had no fucking idea. Like when she says the thing about like the bass player and like she basically fucked the whole band, I was like, my character was shocked, but in my mind I was also like, I can't fucking believe where she's going with this. We only did it twice, because the first time is basically the one we used. When we were done, I laughed so fucking hard. That was my favorite scene in that thing. She just shocked the shit out of me, because she was like, yeah, I blew Richie, and then I fucked the bass player, and then, yeah, it was great. It's great.
We've got these 2 gentlemen over here. These will be our last questions.
Hey there. So you were mentioning earlier that you thought that like maybe Tom Hanks, somebody who had a lot of trustworthiness, could run for president. It seemed like this election cycle that Donald Trump didn't win because he was honest, or he just seemed like he was the best insult comic.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody would say something and he would just come back and zing them.
Yep.
So at this point, wouldn't it seem like somebody who's just a better comedian than him could get up there and just make dick jokes at him and pretty much just scorch him on the stage?
Are you placing a vote for Dave Chappelle? Now, I would vote for Chappelle in a fucking heartbeat. Listen, man. Or Chris Rock.
Al Franken.
Al Franken's already there, right? We fucking...
Yeah, I know, and he sucks at what he's doing, but
I know.
I'm sure that he could be a better comedian than him.
I think so. I agree.
Yeah.
100%. Don Rickles, he's dead.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And
Don Rickles dealing with Kim Jong-un would be really fucking funny.
It'd be amazing. If it wouldn't be much trouble, could you just say, go fuck yourself, Ken Bart?
Kevin Bart?
No, Ken Bart.
Oh, Ken Bar?
Yep, best
Okay.
friend from growing up. Started off watching.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
This is what I get all the time, you know.
I'm glad to be
One time
there.
I was making a movie with Joe Mantegna, and we were in like that movie that was mentioned, Lake Boat. It was a David Mamet film, and we were in Toronto. We went to a Maple Leafs game, and this guy came down. Me and Joe were on the aisle. You know, Joe Mantegna is just an award-winning, Tony-winning, Emmy-winning, great actor. And the guy goes, okay, I just got married. I'm here on my honeymoon. My wife is right up there. She waves at us like that. And he goes, could you guys sign a program for us? And we go, yeah, sure. And he goes to Joe, just say, Dear Donna, you look lovely and good luck, blah, blah, blah. And he signs it like that. And then he gives it to me and he goes, just say, hey, Donna, you're a fucking asshole. Go. So I'm saying,
fantastic.
Go fuck yourself, Ken Barr.
There you go.
Okay, ready?
Yeah,
Ready?
camera was rolling the whole time. He'll love it.
Oh, you got it. Great, one take.
Okay, our last question over here. Thank you so much.
What's happening, Dennis?
Not much. Hanging out.
My friend Jeff bought me tickets tonight. I've always been a fan, but he's a huge fan. I thought I was coming to see a Keith Urban concert. but I only live a mile from here, so. But yeah, thanks for coming to Grand Rapids tonight.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, man.
Grand Rapids were the Calder Cup champions in hockey.
I know. I fucking know. The
And I'm a hockey fan.
Fucking great.
I met my wife because I play hockey. Long story, won't tell it. But I still go down to Kalamazoo once a week and play hockey with my dad on his men's league team. His 2 titanium hips.
Oh, wow.
It's great. So, do you have anything about pickup hockey or stuff that you play every week that you can tell that would be fun, that you could just rap with us? And it might not be interesting to anyone else but me, but...
I play, this is how crazy I am.
But, I won't stand here.
Okay, this is how crazy I am. So, long story short, I'm a city boy. I grew up in the fucking city, and I raised my kids in the city until they were 7 and 9. But my wife, her dream was always to have horses. She rode horses as a little girl, and so we ended up on a horse farm in Connecticut, and our kids went to school out there through their teenage years, and I built an outdoor hockey rink that I used to put up and take care of during the winter. And all my fucking firefighter friends, plus a couple of close ex-NHL friends of mine, including Pat LaFontaine, okay? Yeah, homeboy. We would skate, and we would skate, through the winter. And then in the spring and the summertime and the fall, grown men, a lot of firefighters, some cops, and a lot of ex-NHL guys like Pat, we would play fucking street hockey. And I just wanted, the last game, I just sold that property, and the last game that this is not the only time this happened. The last game that we played there, because, this is how hockey is, you know this. 2 brothers got into a fist fight, who were both firemen, and the next fight was between one of those brothers and one of the other firemen from their crew who broke up the first fight. And then Pat LaFontaine got into a fight with his own goalie, who he brought. And at the end, we all went out and had dinner and beers, and everybody was fucking friends again. To me, that's what I love about hockey. Hey, you guys were great, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Give it up for DENIS Leary! Thank you so much for coming to Grand Rapids.